Esteemed members of the CRPD, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, thank you for offering us the opportunity to address you on the occasion of the UN's World Autism Awareness Day 2014. Let me start by saying that autistic self-advocates understand autism awareness as only the first step on the way toward autism acceptance, recognition, and respect for autistics. Only autism acceptance will ensure our full and equal participation in all areas of public, economic, and social life, as called for by a 2012 resolution of the United Nations General Assembly, and only autism acceptance will meet the requirements of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. My name is Erich Kofmel. I am the founder and president of Autistic Minority International, a Geneva-based NGO and the first and only autism self-advocacy organization active at the global political level. We aim to combat bias and prejudice and advance the interests of an estimated 70 million autistics, 1% of the world's population, at and through the United Nations, World Health Organization, and human rights treaty bodies. Autistic Minority International is an associate member of the Conference of NGOs in consultative relationship with the United Nations. A national of Switzerland by birth, I hold master's degrees in public and development management with specialization in governance and public policy and Roman Catholic theology from universities in South Africa, as well as a postgraduate certificate in comparative and cross-cultural research methods from the UK. Like many, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome only as an adult at age 38 after a lifetime of struggle. Allow me to quickly introduce the other speakers on our panel. It is with regret that I have to inform you that our second announced speaker, Sarai Pala, a native of Zimbabwe and citizen of South Africa who qualified and trained as a medical doctor in South Africa, will not be able to join us today. Sarai belongs to the large of autistics not only in developing countries who had no opportunity to obtain a formal diagnosis due to a lack of professionals qualified to diagnose autism in adults. Hers would have been a very important perspective indeed. Martin Schöngart is Speaker of Enthinderungsselbsthilfe von Autisten für Autisten, ESH, a German DPO run by and for autistics. It was founded in 2006, which makes it the oldest autism self-advocacy organization active in the entire German-speaking region. In 2013, ESH received the Canadian International Naturally Autistic People Award. Due to autism, Martin does not participate in physical meetings. He will be participating remotely, following the proceedings via webcast and captioning. His presentation will be delivered using text-to-speech software, and I will be in contact with him via online chat so that he can respond himself to any questions you might have. Magda Mostafa, to my left, only non-autistic speaker today. A dual citizen of Canada and Egypt, she is an associate professor in the Department of Construction and Architectural Engineering at the American University in Cairo and leading expert on architecture for autism in the context of accessibility. She is an associate at the Cairo-based architectural firm Progressive Architects and served as regional deputy vice president for Africa on the UNESCO UIA Validation Council and Architectural Education Commission. I will commence my own reflections by saying that to autistic self-advocates, autism is a distinct culture and identity, the only one we know. Regardless of where in the world we live, autistics are more like each other than like the people surrounding us. Being autistic is like being a foreigner in one's own native country. Self-advocates view autism not as something to be cured, but as a neurological difference that is equally valid. The autistic minority includes everyone on the autism spectrum, those diagnosed as well as those children and adults undiagnosed for whatever reason. The autistic minority also includes those of us who hide their condition for fear of discrimination. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities recognizes deaf culture and identity as worthy of protection and preservation, and many provisions and references have been included in the Convention catering specifically to the needs of the deaf. Unfortunately, autistics did not have a comparable lobby when the Convention was drafted. Autism is an often invisible disability, even to other autistics. We were only able to find each other with the advent of the Internet and the emergence of autistic communities in cyberspace. Even those of us who do not speak may be able to express themselves in writing online, as evidenced by Internet fora that unite autistics across the spectrum, from least to most severe. Also, by the very nature of autism, we are at a disadvantage when it comes to lobbying. Challenges and severity vary widely between individuals, commonly include difficulties understanding and using facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and non-literal language, unusual speech and eye contact, apparent lack of empathy, dislike of small talk, sensory overload, face blindness, and anxiety. Despite all this, we are here now at the United Nations in front of the CRPD to tell you that autistic culture and identity deserve the same level of recognition and protection afforded to the deaf. We are deeply concerned about any kind of research aiming for prenatal genetic screening or other tests that would allow the abortion of fetuses at risk of autism. Already this is a reality for trisomy 21 or Down syndrome, and large sums of money are spent on research whose ultimate goal is the eugenic genocide on autistics. We call on states parties to the Convention to end all public funding of research in this direction and the organizations promoting it. Which state party will be the first to ban any such research on its soil and lead the international community in condemning any such research intentions and practices? In the context of the recent autism resolutions of the UN General Assembly and the Executive Board of the World Health Organization, we are equally worried that measures aimed at the management of autism in children and the early interventions recommended by many so-called autism experts may in fact be not so veiled attempts at behavior modification and normalization, trying to turn autistic children into something they are not and cannot be, namely non-autistic. It is utterly unacceptable, for instance, when, as frequently happens, therapists advise parents to deprive their child of assistive and augmentative devices, communication devices, so as to force him or her to speak. Anything of this kind is clearly not compatible with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which ensure our right to life and guarantees autistic children the right to preserve their identity. The Convention demands respect for difference and its acceptance as part of human diversity. Too often it is wrongly assumed that autistics cannot or should not be consulted about decisions that will affect us, many of them potential sources of human rights violations, such as our living arrangements or medical and psychological treatment. Instead, non-autistics, among them parents, professionals and experts, make decisions on our behalf, but without our consent. Most autistics, be they children or adults, can make their own decisions if barriers are removed and support is provided. We thus welcome the clarification issued by the CRPD in its draft general comment number 1 that the rights derived from Article 12 of the Convention regarding equal recognition before the law, quote, apply as at the moment of ratification. Parties have an obligation to immediately realize the rights provided for in Article 12, including the right to support in the exercise of legal capacity. Progressive realization does not apply to legal capacity, unquote. We believe that the same principle must apply to recognition and protection of autistic identity. Progressive realization of the right to life and the right to identity is not an option. It is unfortunate that the public discourse on autism is dominated by negative stereotypes, often perpetuated by the very organizations that would presume to be speaking for us. In the implementation of the Convention, the GA resolution and the WHO resolution, it is of paramount importance that decision makers at the local, national, regional and global levels start working with and funding autistic self-advocacy organizations and initiatives rather than continuing to rely on autism-related organizations run by often misguided of autistic children with no or little autistic involvement. We welcome the CRPD and WHO's move away from long-term institutionalization of autistics, but caution against a purely non-autistic understanding of community-based non-residential services. Autistic communities should not be thought of as physical in nature. Autistic communities tend to meet online, for example, in internet fora. Autism self-advocacy organizations frequently operate across borders, assisted by information technology. Support or services to autistics may thus be provided by an individual or a group that is based elsewhere. The definition of community needs to be expanded to take into account autistic realities and preferences. While it seems customary to deprive institutionalized persons with disabilities, including autistics, of access to information and communication, this is particularly devastating to those of us who do not speak and rely on the Internet as their sole means of communication. The importance of unrestricted access to online communication for autistics cannot be emphasized strongly enough. Being cut off from the Internet also means being cut off from the autistic community and any available peer support. Some autistics consider physical meetings of any kind not barrier-free and thus inaccessible to them. We strongly encourage the CRPD to create mechanisms to accommodate this and facilitate remote participation of persons who cannot be in the conference room because of their disability. This should not be one-way communication as with a simple webcast, but fully interactive. In order to remove barriers for autistics, the written word must be given equal weight as the spoken, and electronic communication, such as emails or chats, cannot be treated as inferior to communication face-to-face or on the phone. Physical presence at CRPD sessions must not be a requirement for impact. Lastly, we believe that all autistics should be taught self-esteem, self-confidence, and how to advocate for ourselves as a matter of fact. Thank you.